Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we start a new video series called Guitars of the Stars. A project I've been wanting to start for 2 years, but it's finally time to do this. We're going to take a look at guitars used by famous artists, either in music videos or live, and fully identify them, because the guitar community is curious what is going on here. So if there's a mystery instrument that you've always wanted to know about, please feel free to leave that in the comments section. But to start this journey off, let's cover the guitar that I get asked about just about every single day, the Black Betty Les Paul. This song was released in 1977 by the group Ram Jam. The music video for this was just shot in a backyard somewhere. It was just a great time with friends. But a lot of people will look at this guitar right here and be like, what on earth is that thing? Is it a Les Paul? Is it actually Gibson? Is it some sort of like an Ibanez lawsuit copy? There's so much going on with this. It says Gibson right there on the pickup covers, but at the same time, the headstock is just completely not right. So let's take a look at this piece by piece to figure this out. Granted, the original Black Betty music video isn't in super high definition, but don't worry, current photos of this guitar have surfaced later on. We'll get to those in a minute. So in this first scene, we can see it's a Les Paul with 2 humbuckers. It looks like we have an Ep.1 bridge with a regular stop bar tailpiece. It's kind of hard to tell what color this is, what type of figuring might be there, but we've just got our regular 2 volumes and 2 tones. And it also appears that we're missing the poker chip around the toggle switch. From the next angle that we see in the music video, it's a little bit easier to tell that this is probably a natural finish of some sort. And it's clearly a Les Paul shape, but what is going on with this headstock? It's always reminded me of an Ibanez guitar, but there's a few different ones that have looked like it. But here you can see a nice close-up of an Ibanez from 1979 that's a double neck. When you look at it from right here, and then you copy over here, it's nearly almost an identical match. And since the song came out in 1977, this is definitely around that era where many knockoffs of Les Pauls were starting to hit the market. So I had always believed this just to be one of those, but with like a unique headstock to it. Because let's face it, if Ibanez will rip off the Les Paul recording and make it a left-handed guitar, build Stratocasters, they had some really beautiful straight-up Les Paul copies. Even as far as ripping off an original special, I mean, the vintage Ibanezes, I haven't personally owned one, but I've heard very good things about the quality of these early instruments. So with their headstock looking like this, and it seems so out of place that this might have started life like that, because you can't quite read what the headstock might even say if it says something there. As we continue on here, we can see it has a 1st fret inlay, which is not something you would normally find on a Les Paul standard of this time. And the inlays themselves, they don't appear to be mother of pearl or acrylic plastic. They've got much more figuring to it, so it might just be abalone. On top of that, the fretboard looks extra dark, so we could be dealing with a super worn-in dark piece of Brazilian rosewood, or it could just be ebony. But it's in this close-up shot that we can tell that, oh man, that is a really nice bird's-eyed maple top on this thing. It has no finish, and here's that first time that we got the glimpse of the Gibson pickup. So it's pretty much at this point where people are just super confused about this guitar, and I've always wanted answers for this mysterious and iconic beast. So now it's time for me to tell you the rest of the tale. Let's Leave was the first one to get modern day photos of this guitar and tell us the rest of the story. I could only find the main singer of the band, and unfortunately he doesn't have very fond memories of this music video or time period, so he didn't want to talk too much about it. But here is the guitar as it sits today. This actually is a Gibson Les Paul that has been heavily modified. This instrument started life as a 1954 wrap-tail Goldtop. So it would have looked very similar to this. Reportedly, it was in near mint condition when he first purchased it in a trade deal. So he added $50 cash in one of his other guitars for this. What other guitar, you might be asking? A 1956 Fender Esquire. You know, a Telecaster just with one pickup. That'll be important later on in our tale. But he used this guitar so extensively that it started to need some minor repairs. The gold finish was starting to turn green in many areas, flake off in others. It just wasn't what he was wanting at that point in time. I mean, you gotta remember, vintage guitars weren't always looked and sought after. They were just used at that point in time. So the very first thing he did to his 54 Goldtop is he ended up routing it out for humbuckers, and he put some patent number PAFs in there. And the original P90 pickups that came out of this instrument he used for a Mosrite project, which we'll take a quick tangent off to talk about. It was this guy right here. So he put the original P90 pickups from that Les Paul into this double-necked guitar and just made some custom covers for them. Here you can see Mr. Bartlett today playing that exact guitar, and one of him all the way back in the day playing this, with some harp skills. So now that the original pickups were gone and he had some PAFs in here, he decided he was just going to completely remove the finish due to the greening. And what he found was an absolutely ugly multi-piece top that had barely any figuring or maybe mix match. He doesn't have any photos of the guitar at that point in time, but he wanted a guitar similar to what Paul Bigsby used in the 50s. So he took the time to hand chisel off the original maple top and then templated for a new bird's eye maple top to be put on here. So that's what made the guitar look like this, and that's why it's so unrecognizable to most 50s Les Pauls. You don't find bird's eye that often, not like this anyways. So that explains the body and some of the replaced parts that he's got going on here. But when he played this guitar live, he would like to induce feedback by bending the headstock against his Marshall amp, similar to what Jeff Beck would do, and he accidentally cracked the headstock. Now, it's not 100% clear to me how he cracked it, but I'm almost guessing it was like a wing separation of some sort. Because what this article was talking about is he decided to modify the headstock by putting new wings on it. So he was clearly influenced by like the Ibanez design. Some Mosrite guitars also looked like this. I mean, remember, he was working on that Mosrite project guitar, so it was very in his face. It's kind of what he was liking in guitars at that point in time. So I'm not sure how he did it, he just did it. I mean, it looks to me like he just added new wings and then had these swirly bits as part of the new wing. Like, you can just barely tell the original Gibson headstock underneath there. And then obviously there were some finished touch-ups and other things done where he put like kind of a, what looks like a flower pot inlay on the headstock. And he did those in abalone inlay, and then he also decided to add that first fret marker there and replace all the other fret markers on the guitar to abalone so it matched. So looking at the headstock, now that we've got a nice close-up photo, you can see it's definitely worn. He played this guitar quite a bit. And some of these modifications, they don't look like 100% professional, but given the tools that were available to him when he was doing these mods, it seems to be all right. Like, you can see the lacquer has chipped off of this now. It appears to be like some sort of like a flower pot floral type thing that you would find on fancy guitars. But hey, we even have Grover Imperial tuner style tips. I'm not sure if those are actually Grovers on it. I mean, there's tons of stuff that he could have modified it with. But hey, I wonder if that's real tortoise shell at this period. Like, was it custom made or was it an old part to begin with? It looks pretty cool though, with the white, black, and white layers underneath that. And it does seem to be positioned correctly for a 50s Les Paul. Those inlays he put in here are fantastic looking. Like, this was around the time like when the Les Pauls were being built, and that's kind of what the abalone in that guitar looked like as well, except for we have trapezoid inlays here. And it probably makes sense that he wanted to add that first fret, because Pete Townsend had that on his Les Paul Deluxe. So I wonder if that is a tribute to that, or just he wanted a first fret marker. You can tell it might have been refretted at one point in time. I mean, it had so much other work when it surprised me. It's either that or the fret nibs have just been so small that they've been worn off over the years. I mean, you can tell there's definitely some fret wear there. So that tells us the rest of that. And then the next thing he did was swap it out with gold hardware. And it's at this point in time where he added the Gibson pickup covers. Now, why he added the Gibson pickup covers, I don't know, maybe so he could tell people, yeah, it did start life as a Gibson. But I always thought that those were 1972 Gibson T-tops. But according to this story, it seems like it might be earlier T-tops or even slightly pre-T-top pickups in there at that point in time. They just had the cool Gibson embossed covers that were done in 1972. You can find those stock on guitars, like this one right here, a very nice Les Paul custom with it. But you can also find other models with it as well. Now, after the music video, he continued to modify this guitar. As we see it today, the pickups have been replaced with Carvin M22s, and he's moved the pickup selector from here all the way down there. And a la Eddie Van Halen, he swapped it out for just a master volume. He capped off these other places with mother of pearl or abalone, and he added some mini toggle switches to the instrument as well to affect the way it sounded. These controlled the split coils for each pickup, and they could reverse the polarity. And he did that to get the Mickey Baker Love is Strange. Hey, Mickey Baker, check out the Mickey Baker Les Paul Custom. That thing's pretty interesting in itself, and I have done a full review and documentation of a reissue on that. In its current day state, it looks like this might have been either 3 pieces or we just have some cracks forming. He wore the new finish off the side right here, and interestingly enough, when he modified this, he ended up giving it multiply binding. Regularly, standards would just have a single band around it, but this one, it appears to be 3 or 4. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of hard to tell if there's another black layer right there or not, but potentially 4 layers. So not quite custom, not quite standard, just something all on his own. But it's interesting how this line matches up pretty well with that, so that makes me believe that, yeah, this probably is a 3-piece top, all quilted and everything. And hey, we've got the bridge that Kirk Hammett was famous for using right here, an alembic brass bridge. But the tailpiece looks fairly modern on it right now. I wonder if he swapped that out between now and then. But what an interesting tale of this guitar. Bill, I know you're not necessarily on the internet too much, but if you happen to see this video, I would love to borrow this guitar and document it in all its glory so we can see everything that's been done to this instrument. I think it definitely needs some video documentation. I said it was important to note the Esquire earlier, right? It seems Bill might actually prefer playing Telecasters after all, because he was asked in 2009 to perform Black Betty live at the Summer of Love 3 in Cincinnati, Ohio, and this is the guitar that he chose to do that with. Which is kind of cool because it appears to have a Charlie Christian pickup with it. Once again, having some tortoiseshell pickguard on it. Super flame top. I'm surprised he didn't go for bird's eye again, but maybe his personal preferences have changed since then. But it does appear to be double bound and probably custom made. He seems to be a tinkerer. So what a cool story. It's fantastic that we finally got to see this guitar in its current format. It's a shame that it was further modified, so it's not exactly what we've seen in the video. But this is such a cool guitar, a piece of history of rock music, because Black Betty is a very iconic song. If you haven't listened to it, please do. A fun story is Black Betty actually had nothing to do with race or anything like that, in this iteration anyways, because this song is actually kind of a cover by a guy named Leadbelly, which he took from an old tune that people would sing when they were breaking rocks to create gravel for roads. But when he was singing it, he was always thinking of Betty Page. He liked the pinup of her when she had a whip. So when he was singing Black Betty, it was for her because she liked to wear black. It had nothing to do with race, and the NAACP giving him hard times about it, it was not justified. So troglodytes, I hope you enjoy knowing the real truth behind the Black Betty Les Paul. Yes, it is a real Les Paul, it's just been heavily modified, and it was formerly a 1954 Goldtop. Serial number 40755. If you have a mysterious guitar that you would like me to discuss on the Guitars of the Stars mini-series, please email your suggestions to tradetrogly@gmail.com or leave a comment here. I might need your guys' help on some of these, so be sure to check my community posts in the future. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.